This video will go through a recap of Leisure Unit 2, Holidays and Travel. The first thing you're going to need to do is get yourself a pen and some paper, and there are 4 key events in the pictures on the screen here. You're going to need to put them in chronological order. So pause the video, date, title, task. Okay, so this is our correct chronology. So we're going to start off with Plough Monday in the medieval era. Now, this is kind of a trick one because it's a holy day rather than a holiday, but I'm sure you've already worked that out by now. Then we move on to the early modern era where the Grand Tour was popular. This was the tour of Europe for rich young men where they would take and go and see the sites that they'd learnt about at university. Then we get the railway boom in the 1800s where loads of trains were made, and this leads to cheap train travel, or at least easy access to most places. And then you get planes, which completely change how holidays work in the modern era. So we'll just do a very quick recap of the separate eras, just so you can enjoy my Photoshop skills. So in the medieval era, we have holy days, which are religious in focus, hence the name. The biggest one was Mother's Night, which is around the 25th of December, and it marks the start of the Anglo-Saxon year. So it's a funny note in history that every time a new religion comes, they adopt the previous customs. That's why we have Christmas, which is supposedly Jesus' birth on the 25th of December. There's no real evidence for this, just the most popular celebration was Mother's Night, and it just slotted in nicely for the new religion. You've got Blood Month that celebrates harvest time. Christmas Eve to Twelfth Night, which is the 6th of January, which includes the Lord of the Manor giving boxes of presents to his workers, which is why the day after Christmas is known as Boxing Day. Then you get Oliver Cromwell. He's a Puritan, and he's Lord Protector, technically not king, but did the same job because he cut off the king's head, which, yeah, didn't work out too well for Cromwell in the end, but he was Lord Protector for a fair few years. And he and his Puritan Parliament bans Christmas as it's too frivolous or excessive. But the rich could still undertake pilgrimages to holy places, like where Thomas Becket dies in Canterbury. And if you really scrutinise that medieval picture, you might see something that's a bit off. Because, fun fact, well, I think it's fun. I mean, it's a bit weird. But yeah, fun fact about Mr. Ferguson is that his great times 27 grandfather was one of the knights that actually murdered Thomas Becket. In Canterbury, so there might be something fun to bring up when, maybe not when he's in a bad mood, but you know, liven it up a bit. Yeah, I've got too much time on my hands. So we'll move very quickly to the early modern era of the Grand Tour. So holy days do still exist. It's essential that you remember that. It's only the rich people that can go on Grand Tour. It's not like in the early modern era, no one but the rich went on holiday. It doesn't work like that. But your course wants you to focus on the Grand Tour. It's for rich young men to complete their education. So at the time, the only things you could study at university was history, classical history, and philosophy. It's led by a bear leader. And they would go and see the ancient sites like the Colosseum and the Vatican. They've learnt about all this stuff at university, and now they get a chance to kind of go and see it for themselves. And I've just put a picture at the bottom of Pompeii, which is those stone people. So a volcano erupted in 79 AD, and eventually they found the site, and there were all these hollows. So they decided to pour concrete in all these hollows, and it turns out they're like the hollow spaces where bodies were incinerated pretty much instantly. So I guess it's one of the more morbid sites of the Grand Tour, but still quite interesting. And men collected mementos, as well as drinking, gambling, and womanizing. but it's where we get guidebooks for the first time. So the early version of TripAdvisor starts with the Grand Tour, which is quite cool. So I've deliberately skipped the modern era because that's what I want you guys to focus on today. So you've got another one of these tables that you're going to need to do. You're going to need at least a whole side of A4, just like last time. But your focus should be on facts for the modern section. So pause the video. I'm estimating about 15 minutes again to fill out this table. Okay, so let's go through my examples. So in the medieval era, you've got holidays or holy days like Plough Monday, Christmas Eve, Blood Month. Everyone goes on these. The rich can go on pilgrimages. People go on holidays or holy days for religious reasons. How are they celebrated? Each different holy day has got its own tradition. So Boxing Day is the Lord giving gifts in boxes. At Easter time, poor people give the Lord eggs and he'll make them a meal. And they all involve some sort of decoration, normally with flowers, and they all involve some sort of game. Where did they go and how did they get there? So they were in their own villages, and they got there with horses or walking. In the early modern era, holy days are still a thing, but the Grand Tour is popular for rich people. So everyone goes to holy days, but it's only rich young men that go on the Grand Tour. Now they can take their families and servants, but predominantly it is just for rich young men. And the purpose of these holidays are for religion, to finish their education, to see sights, and crucially, in the Elizabethan era, you can bring in some of your extra knowledge about people travelling to beg throughout the kingdom. They're celebrated, same as in the medieval era, but the Grand Tour involves shopping, drinking, sightseeing, womanising. Where did they go? So exactly the same again for holy days, but the Grand Tour is in Europe only, including Rome, Venice and France, just to name a few places. In the modern era, there's two kind of things your scheme of work focuses on, butlins and caravan holidays and package holidays. And pretty much everyone goes on holiday now, still, but 75% of holidays are still taken in the UK. So why did people go on holiday? Well, it's important to note it first started as wakes weeks, where each factory would have a week off to clean equipment, and that kind of led to a 6-week natural summer holiday, which is why we still have 6 weeks in summer. Woo! You've got Bank Holiday Acts, which meant people had more free time. Holidays with Pay Act gave people paid holiday for the first time ever, so they weren't losing any money if they went on holiday. And you've got cheap airlines like Laker Airways to America, that opened up huge sections of the world. And nowadays it can be for any reason. It can be for religion, it could be for volunteering, or it could even be for the food. And we can now go anywhere, quite literally anywhere, although 75% of holidays are still taken in the UK. So pause the video and note down anything you are missing. You guys are going to now have a go at a leisure question 5, which is one of the longest questions you'll come across, but actually, if you just do the table we've just shown you, then actually this question is probably the easiest one, and it's the one that statistically brings our marks up the most. So it's really straightforward. How have holidays changed over time? All you need to do is talk about 3 historical eras: medieval, early modern and modern, and then have a judgment that clearly summarises your change. So you get 6 marks for knowledge and 10 marks for your analysis of change. So that really tells you how much you should be weighting on this. Your teacher will also tell you if this is going to be peer marked, or self-marked, because no one can see each other, or if they prefer it to be a teacher mark. So if they haven't already said, can you just remind them in the chat box, please? You've been asked Self-sir, your answer on the board here is the mark scheme. So make sure you read it carefully. So your AO1, or the column on the left, is all about knowledge. And your AO2, or the column of the right, is your ability to understand chronology, so the correct time order, but also explain change and what causes the change, how it affects holidays, things like that. So I've given you an example of the S, I and the R that you would need to write down. Obviously, this is a formally assessed piece of work, so it does need to be a fair bit of writing. On the next slide as well will be a model answer to help you with that. So go ahead, pause the video, give yourself an S, an I and an R. Please email your teacher your question with the self-marking if you've been asked to self-sir, or obviously without if it is a teacher sir. And then please go to show my homework and complete the quiz 3 times. Bye.